The following message is for the President of the United States of America. Mr. President, this is Richard Rockfire. I come to you now on behalf of most of the movie stars and rock stars and celebrities around the world, including major corporate executives, including Bill Gates himself and many other politicians that are getting involved. We ask that you, as the elected president, do exactly what most of the citizens of the United States have elected you to do. Stand your ground, Mr. President. For the first time, you're the richest and the most powerful president in the history of the United States of America, and you can make a difference. We're counting on you, and the whole world is counting on you to do so. I urge you to listen to this very important message that is encouraging you as the man in power of the hour to do exactly what it takes to stand up against the FDA, the EPA, the USDA, and the pharmaceutical agencies that are keeping the people around the world sick. Thank you, and Godspeed, Mr. President, indeed. First off, Mr. President, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Agency, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they control basically everything we eat and how it's produced and how it's being manufactured back to the people, the way it infects the environment, and I do mean infects. It's unpositive as a incorrect statement that's not politically right. Result is very not positive. It's having a negative effect on the environment. It is destroying our environment and our species around the world. We are taking animal genes and species genes that we're making up like alien DNA that has never before existed, as far as we know, anywhere in the world or in the universe. The bottom line is, how the hell do we know that it's going to work for us now? And if we start ingesting those things, when we play God with our environment, we are going to get the results that we are. The destruction of our environment, the destruction of the human race and its species, and eventually the entire destruction of the ecosystem. It has to stop. We have to make a choice, Mr. President, now to stop using these unneeded pesticides, herbicides that are being chemically produced, and these genetically modified organisms that have animal genes and species that do not exist in the history of this world that we are ingesting so that those pesticides and herbicides can live on them. The only reason they're made is so that they can spray this strong chemical, oil-based chemical that gets into the soil of the earth, washes off into the streams, and destroys the water supplies, the fish, and infects like a disease, a plague, the rest of the world and its environments that it's used in. We must change our way of life. We must change our way of thinking. All right, now that these things have been said, what we're doing right now is we're asking that all of our major rock star buddies, all of our movie stars, all of the rich people out there, make donations directly back to us through the Rockfire World Share campaign, or that you go to KonganWaterPacific.com or RichardRockfire.com, pull up the donations area, and if you are a regular person in this world that has a family member, or you yourself have any major illness such as cancer or a heart illness or diabetes, and over 80% of the illnesses that do affect our society around the world, we ask that you make at least a $1 to a $10 donation. We are going to raise money to do our own research outside of the government, outside of the so-called medical and pharmaceutical controlled industry, to actually start healing people, to giving away these machines and teaching them how to eat right, teaching them how to use aquaponics and how to grow their own food. We want to make sure that this world is healthy and educated, and we're going to raise as much money as we can for this campaign. We want to be the first website in the history of the world to offer a $10 million reward to prove that any of the facts that we base all this on can be disproven, because they cannot. We want to be the first website in the history of man to actually give people a reason to do their research, to get off their butts, to get involved, and to be the biggest effort at literally making a difference for the ecosystem and the life, all life on this planet. Godspeed, indeed. So waking up and making these changes would mean to make changes for real in government, changes for real in our society. People would have to start doing the research, but the government, they'd have to start doing things that you've already put into way, and I appreciate what you've done at making it hard for lobbyists. I appreciate and I salute you for the fact that you're trying to keep the lobbyist from going from the White House to going to working for some firm, some corporation, some executive level that is going to pay them money to lobby for their cause. And that is the biggest issue, is getting rid of this. Getting this nonsense out of government is going to take away what should be a conflict of terms. It should be called treason. It should be called treason because it's not for the people. These people, they should be arrested. And technically by treason, they should be handled with a death penalty, with all due respect. I mean, what we're doing to our environment is destroying it. What we're allowing our government officials and our people to do is to come out of the office of the White House, which is supposed to be the most respected area from the kingship of the presidency of the United States of America, and then they go and they lobby for the very corporations that are destroying the planet, destroying the people. And that's what it comes down to. And it comes down to greed. Now, I don't want to get into the greed and fractional reserve banking and money is BS and the way it's all run is by nonsense. I don't want to go there right now, but what I do want to go into is the bottom line. And the bottom line is we don't need any more lobbyists. We don't need any more people there protesting the American government and then having the left wing versus the right wing create conflict, the same conflict that came when you came into office, the same brainwash BS that's going around the world. Okay, it's going around the world, and people, they do not see the common sense behind some of the things that you're doing. Now, I see it, and I understand it. Its approach is sometimes harsh, but it has to be, because there's no other way to deal with something that is so messed up right now. And right now, we have to be harsh. The people prior to you that were before you, they put this stuff into change to allow GMOs to be produced. Animal genes and species that should not be mixed. They don't exist. We're just making it up. And now we're producing this on a daily basis for people to ingest around the world. It's got to stop. So the first thing is we got to stop having lobbyists that are going to lobby for these companies that do it, that are going to lobby for the the pesticides, the herbicides, the insect so-called programs when they're not needed. They're destroying the environment. We'll cover this in a minute. The next thing we need to do is to get rid of the GMOs completely. Because they are genetically modified organisms. They've never existed in this planet's history. They've never existed in the history of the universe as far as we know. How the hell do we know that they're going to work for us now in any given circumstance? Because they're not test tried and proven on a human race. And that's kind of the point. Steven Spielberg covered this in Jurassic Park. Just because scientists know how to do it doesn't mean they should. It doesn't mean they should. They're putting oil-based. Oil-based. You cannot wash this stuff off. People come home, they go to the stores, they buy their fruits, their vegetables, their produce, they bring it home, they try to wash it off. They can't get this oil-based herbicide, pesticide crap that is chemical and very detrimental not only to the environment but to their bodies. They can't get it off by washing it, rinsing it in their city water or bottled water supplies, whatever they have. It's not good enough to wash it off. Now, there's a medical device that we'll cover in a moment that does do that because it produces a mixture of a micro-medical hydrogen that will wash that crap off. But the point is most of the world don't even know that it exists. And people are dying. Next is just basically, when we look at the fact that beyond the GMOs, that are the dumbest thing, the number one research people in the world behind the GMOs, behind the genetic physics of making these organisms, of taking animal genes and putting in these animal genes into plants. They put them into plants so that the damn plants will not die, so that the vegetation, fruits, and vegetables will not die if they have fish genes or rabbit genes or rat genes or the gene from a horse. Whatever the hell they decide to come up with, they put it into a plant, and that's supposed to be what you ingest. This is an alien DNA to this world. It's an alien, non-biological breakdown DNA. Our bodies have never even had to deal with it. The gene, okay, the DNA gene of a horse, a fish, a plant, a rabbit, all these things mixed together, when they wake up inside themselves, they don't know where the hell they are. They don't know how to react. It might keep them from dying, and they might look fine. They might look primarily the same. But an organic tomato versus a GMO tomato versus a tomato that is organic, literally right from the vine, there's no comparison. A real tomato is full of acid. You bite into it, you can taste the acidics. It's rich. And it doesn't last for days on end. These vegetables that we eat, these fruits that we eat, tomatoes actually a fruit, these things that we eat are full of lycopene and they're full of beta-carotenoids. They're full of the nutrients that our bodies need to be healthy. And if you take and you start manipulating that with animal genes and spraying a bunch of oil-based pesticides on top of them, giving people flu shots that we won't go into right now that are full of mercury and other garbage, feeding them the crap that we feed them by the lobbyists that lobby for this, it's going to keep the world sick. So the bottom line is we have to stop this. It has to be stopped. It has to be brought to a halt, period. Period. The ecosystem is dying. People are dying around the world. The pest control companies are making billions yearly. They're infecting this planet and destroying its species. They're making GMOs because of these companies. They do not need to be doing this. There are companies throughout the world, there's countries throughout the world that are not using the GMOs, that are not using the pesticides, the herbicides, the chemical oil-based nonsense that are destroying their ecosystem and the environment the way we are. There are countries out there, Japan's doing it, parts of Germany, parts of France, different parts of Europe. We look at Korea, we look at other areas of the world. How far in advance are these countries, these people, as opposed to America? How much further back on the scale of healthcare do we have to be? On planetary care, on eco-environmental friendly care do we have to be to not fall so far behind the time? Mr. President, I was part of a very important organization that started to dissipate after George W. came into office. And it was called the United Nations, basically, address from the State of the World Forum, which is now the World Watch Institute. Founded back in 1983, was a book that is the Bible science of this world. It's called the State of the World Report, now the World Watch Institute. We lived by this for decades. I remember when I was back in the early 90s, the late 80s, 1990 itself, actually, I remember having tears in my eyes when I read, and I had tears in my eyes when I read the 5-year review from the beginning of the 5-year review of the growing land mass, the destruction of the species of this planet. And this is back in the 1980s and the early 90s when we were all wanting to be a part of this. 9/11 came along. It was a great distraction. And that's all it was. A big damn distraction from everything else that was important that was actually taking place to make a global unity and to stop what the original senior, George Bush Sr., started with all these damn GMOs. Now they have to stop. People have been getting sick for almost 90 years. Not even an entire century. But for 90 years, people have been getting sick primarily based on the change of food. We took away real milk, real whole, straight from the cow milk. And 100 years ago, when they had an outbreak, because there was no refrigeration, they had a reason for pasteurizing the milk, but there's no reason for doing it today. And the USDA and the FDA are going in with FBI agents, with sheriff's departments, and they're holding people at hostage in their homes, and they're shooting thousands and thousands of heads of cattle and destroying the cattle because people are eating healthy. This nonsense has to stop, and it's not only happening in America. I saw it was happening in other parts of Europe. It's happening in areas that we are, as an event of just events, we're echoing out, and the insanity is carrying over, and it's got to stop. We have refrigerators. We have technology now that didn't exist 100 years ago. There's no damn reason to have to keep doing this. When people drink whole milk, they don't get sick. They don't have to have Benadryl, Actifed, Zyrtec. I could go down the line of the list of allergy medications they do not need. When people do not eat trans fats, they do not ingest the things that are bad for them, they don't get sick. When they don't have GMOs that do not exist in the history of this world until here recently, over the past few decades, they don't get sick. We've changed our entire diet, Mr. President, over the past 100 years. Everything has changed. Everything. We didn't know what heart attacks were until 100 years ago, 99 years ago. We didn't even know what heart disease, quote, disease is not a disease. All right? Heart disease isn't. Diabetes isn't. It's an illness. It's an illness that is a pathogen that is based on the food, the crap that we eat. People that ate healthy up until the past 100 years never had these diseases. They didn't exist. We didn't know what they were. They weren't recorded. Alzheimer's, all of the ADHD kids, all the dementia, all of the, which is the #1 problem in the world now. All of these medical illnesses are based on the fact that we are putting all of the mercury, all of the fluoride, all of the arsenics into the water supplies, into the food, into the toothpaste, into everything that people ingest to make them the dumbest, most illogical, non-reasoning, fight amongst themselves idiots that's ever lived in this species of the world. It doesn't happen naturally, but we produce it as a government because it makes people easy to control. And this nonsense has to stop. And it has to stop because the bottom line is we're dying of multiple cancers that should never have existed. We are dying from things that do not need to exist, that are cured by the body's immune system literally being able to just repair itself. And all it needs is alkalized, not alkaline, alkalized water. Alkalized water is produced by a medical machine that ionizes water and creates alkaline type base water, but with no chemicals. It only lasts for a few hours. It has to be drank fresh. You can't consume it after days because alkalized water is the real deal. It's medical. It's test, tried, and proven. It is changing the world. People that are dying, pronounced dead, going to be dead in weeks with cancer, have full recovery. The same thing with diabetes patients, not having to be amputated. The same thing with skincare patients and multiple levels of patients with over 80% of the illnesses around the world being wiped out immediately within a week or two of taking this stuff. A couple of weeks. The right diet, the right micromedical H3O, not H2, micromedical hydrogen can reverse what we've done the damage to. But now it takes micromedical hydrogen to reverse how much damage has been done to this world. These machines exist. Millions of people have them, and most of the rock stars and celebrities have them. You have them in the White House. President Obama had them in the White House. You've got them on your planes. Bill Gates got 18 of these things throughout his house, holding up signs all over the internet. People around the world have these machines. I'm here on behalf of all of the celebrities that are now endorsing this, which is most of the rock stars, including Sir Elton John, including all of our good friends with Aerosmith, Motley Crue. We could talk about it and go down the line of everybody that's been informed on this. Everybody. Pam Anderson is a great lady, love her. Everybody knows about this device and wants people to not have to eat GMOs, not have to eat pesticide, herbicide, cancer-causing, Alzheimer's-causing. Disease is not the problem. Illness is the problem. A disease is something that infects you. Period. AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. That's a disease. And that's a disease that got out into the world because the blood banks and the corporate execs, back when they knew that they could use certain tests to test for it, didn't use it because they wanted to play God with people, and the whole world became infected. And this is now the infection of our planet, and species are being killed off every day. The human species and the equality of human life is being destroyed on a daily basis because we do not stand up and say no to the people that the FDA, the USDA, and the EPA have sold out to the incredible destruction to allow this planet to be destroyed. We must stop this madness. The madness is outside of the realm of any logical way of reasoning. There is no way of greed and corp control to do another AIDS epidemic, but to do it 100 times worse than AIDS is what's going on right now, and it will happen in the next 30, according to scientists, it will happen in the next 30 to 100 years. We're going to wipe out our ecosystem, and there's birds, those bees, those plants, those trees, those things we take for granted. We take for granted. I'll say it again, we take them for granted. Those beautiful things that we see and love every day are going to disappear unless we get off our asses and we make a change. So, Mr. President, as a man that met you through the years, as a man that is connected to the better half of Hollywood, and I know a lot of people in politics as well, it comes down to this. I want you to do your job. This world wants you to do your job. I believe in you as being the richest, the most powerful, the most probably intelligent president that's came in with a correct way of looking at this in a business sense to really address with the issues that are going on, to actually take the ball and run with it. We expect you to do so. Most of this country elected you, and by God, you better stand up to your ground. You better do your job, Mr. President, because we're all standing behind one thing. We at least. We're either going to stand here to condemn you, or we're going to stand here to be beside you and elect you again and say you're either the greatest president in the history of the United States of America, or you're the worst. Now take it. You have a ball that you did not do yourself. You did not create these problems. It is not your fault. It's not your fault. But it is your damn job and your ability. The only president I know who wouldn't have to fear for his life is you, if you stand up against the damn EPA, the FDA, and of course the USDA, and these pharmaceutical agencies that are destroying this planet and keeping this world sick. It makes me sick that when you buy a Bayer aspirin, or you buy this from Dow, or you buy this from these guys, that we are supporting GMOs and pesticides that are destroying this planet, and it has to stop. Mr. President, there is a machine in your house, a machine on your plane, and a machine that's been around, and there's a lot of these machines out there. They're called water ionizers. They're medically backed. They're made by literally the Enagic company that started it back in 1992 out of Japan. The Enagic company has made more miracles happen than anybody knows. The Tyant company has come in out of Korea. We have other ionizers out there by life. There's other ionizers out there that can save lives. And it can only do it if people eat the right fruit, the right vegetables that are not GMO, that are organic, that do not have all these herbicides, these pesticides, that have not been put through the process of everything it takes to destroy life. They deserve to be hydrated and to be using natural food sources, that they don't have to go down and buy what is now being made, supplemental vitamins. So when you buy what's called vitamins, when you especially buy vitamin types of EC, whatever, you're getting man-made versions of it. Chemicals. They're making chemical vitamins now because they don't want people to be healthy. It has gotten insane. The pharmaceutical industry at the top, the DEA should be going after the most evil drug dealers in America, in the world. The biggest, the most powerful drug dealers, the most evil Satanists on this planet are the pharmaceutical industry that are purposely killing people around this world every damn day. Mr. President, you were elected to do a job. The best health care plan is not to have one. There is no reason for people to need a health care plan when over 80% of all their illnesses will disappear if they drink the right water with the right food. You know it, I know it. It's time to make a difference. Godspeed, Mr. President, indeed.